Okay, so let's talk about SMT, or surface mount components. You know, you've been inserting components into the board, tiny little solder hole, and soldering the backside. Well, in high-speed manufacturing of circuit boards, they use surface mount components. You'll notice that they provided some, and they're in this little paper holder with little holes in it. These are actually fed into a machine that begins to lay out and insert these surface mount components. So, before we do anything, let us identify these surface mount components for the next part. We're going to be soldering the USA. Now, I can't see those, not without magnification. So, I will tell you now that the long strip, because they're going to give you some practice first, is going to be the 1K. All right. And if you look very closely, you'll see that says 33. So that's going to be our 330 ohm resistor. And then the next one is going to be our 2K resistor. So, how do I test that if I don't know for sure? Well, I'll get out my old trusty meter. I will turn it to the appropriate reading, and I will insert my probes, and I'm going to lay this flat on a piece of paper. I'm going to come over here and test it. And that's my 1 kilo ohm resistor. So, before you begin, identify all of the resistors that you have. So, starting again, we have 2K, 330 ohm, and then the long one will be your 1K resistor. Now, on the back of your resistor sheet, I have written on mine what it is. So here's my 1K. So I wrote on there, so I don't have to figure this out again. So repeat that for the rest of them, what they are. Because on the next part, when you design, you're going to be able to pick the colors in your USA, but you're going to have to know what resistors or what LEDs went where to determine what resistor to put in. Remember, all our LEDs look exactly the same. We still won't be removing them all from the bags because then we don't know what color they are. So once I've identified my resistors, I can peel back very carefully. Do not remove them all at once. If you remove all of these resistors, you'll never find them again. And so I'm going to insert this resistor back into my package and set aside. Now, let's talk about the design and layout of the USA part of your project. So, here we have a blown up version of your book, My USA. And this is located in the Google Drive Class Share Awesome USA project folder. So you can download this and print it off for those of you at remote sites. And so all I've done is take the portion of the manual and blown it up. So now we completed you should have completed it soldering. I didn't do that, but you should have soldered all of your LEDs around the outside of the USA. So all of this should be complete before you proceed. So solder all of your LEDs all the way along. So just keep going all the way through here with your standard resistors and testing, and you're good. So next part of the project, I need to design where I want these components to go. And since I don't know what color LED they are until they're inserted in the hole, we're going to make a little map. And so now I've started at the U, and I've decided I want a red, white, and blue. You can pick any color you want. You know, common practice is red on the U, white on the S, and blue on the A, but you can do whatever you want. Just make sure you write it down before you proceed to the next step. And so I've picked my U12 to be red, my U11 to be white, and my U10 to be blue. And you might even write that out there because it's not a very clear picture. So I've picked all of those. And I've written down what resistor goes on what component part. Okay, so that's what I've done. Our board. And we're going to look at U12. Here's U12. All right, I'm going to flip my board over. I'm going to locate U12 on the back. All right. So I picked the red LED. I'm going to go find it. Remembering that the long side is positive, I'm going to insert these correctly. So our rounded side of the silk screen is positive, just like in all your other projects. I'm going to locate the long side. I'm going to insert it into the hole, long side to the round. I'm going to bring that over. I'm going to flip it up. And just like you've done in the previous steps, I'm going to solder that component on there. Now, once I do that, I'll see right here is the place for the U12 resistor. Okay, so this is the place for the U12 resistor. Depending on what color LED, I picked red, it says I need a 230 ohm. So that's where I would install my 230 ohm. Now, my suggestion to you is install all of your LEDs first. So complete all of the LED install, trim them up, and then come back to install the surface mount resistors. So they did provide some practice on surface mount resistors. Other side of the board, right under the word Awesome USA at the top, are some practice points for surface mount resistors. So let's look at those. If you're wouldn't hit the power button on the camera, that might help. Here we go. So we have some practice, and the instructions say to solder 3 1 kilo ohm resistors across here, and that they are all connected. And so I should be able to read from this point to this point 3 kilo ohm resistors. First thing I want to do is remove my 1 kilo ohm resistor from my packaging, and I'm going to plop that down there, and it flew off into space. And so now I have it turned around. I think that, you know, direction on these are so small, you kind of want your lettering right side up. I believe that's right side up. Let's see. Get it a little closer. Yeah, I think that is right side up. It's hard to tell because my camera image is reversed for some reason on this Hangout. So, first thing we want to do is install these padded resistors. And you might find that they're slightly easier than through-hole mounting, but they are more delicate to work with. So I have my safety glasses on, my soldering iron is hot, my sponge has been wet. I'm going to clean my tip right now. I'm cleaning the tip off. And I'm going to apply a small amount of solder to these pads for R1. And so here we go. I'm going to apply a small amount here, just a little bit, just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and hit the rest of them because they all got to go on there. And I'll apply some more here. I'll apply some more here. Surface mount just like your USB. Just a little bit. And now I've applied my surface mount. So now here becomes the tricky part. I'm going to use my pliers. You can't do this with your finger. You're going to burn your finger. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hold this. Notice that small metal end is what I'm trying to insert into that solder. Basically, I'm going to melt this solder and shove this resistor into it on one side, and then I'll repeat on the other. And it's been a while since I soldered surface mount components, so we may get a demonstration of how not to do it as well. So let's see. We're going to insert the, let's see, can you see that? Yeah. So I have my tweezers on it, my soldering iron's hot. I've tinned my pads. You don't have to worry about tinning the resistor. We're going to heat this up. And we're going to kind of insert that in there and hold, let it set up. And so now it's set up. Now I have to go back to the other side. I'm going to have to rotate this around. It's not going to fall off the board. I've got one side soldered. And so now I'm going to solder the other side of this resistor. Hopefully it comes into focus pretty quick. And it's so small from a distance it actually looks straight, but it's not. So if I can't get it straight, that's okay. This is practice. We're going to apply some heat and we're going to hold it in place. All right. So if that worked, I should be able to read 1 kilo ohm across this component. So I'm going to locate my probes for my meter. Seem to have eluded me at this moment. Here they go. I'm going to set my meter. You can do 20K. We're only reading a 1K resistance here. I have my meter on and set for 20K, and I've checked it. It is working. And so now if I check these solder pads, I should be reading 1K across there. So let's see if we can, I don't know how well this will work. Probably not going to be able to get the whole meter on there. You'll just have to take my word for it that we are reading 1K across here. All right. So I'm going to turn this around and I'm going to solder the next 1K resistor. Remember, I have not removed any from my package except the one I'm working on. You take them out of your package, they're going to disappear. So you want to take your time with this, not get in too big a hurry. So here we go with the next one. Remember, this is just practice. You need to take your time on this and do it correctly. I'm going to remove another component from my board. A 1K. I'm going to pull that back a little bit. Flip it out. Maybe it's upright. Yeah, maybe this is the correct way. the center of the screen. And I'm going to solder the next side. Like building a ship in the bottle, it takes patience. I'm going to insert this on one side. I'm going to heat up my solder. Hold, let it set up. And we'll see how well I can do this side. Right. Just a little bit of solder. Whoop, hold, let it set up. Now sometimes it's a good idea, these things are so small, make sure they're not going to pop off. So I'm going to grab a hold of them. They appear to be on there pretty firm. And I will install my last practice resistor. I may have even gotten just a tiny bit too much solder on here, but it's hard to do, they're so small. So I'm going to flip that off. Now, because they are so small, if you keep applying heat to them, you're going to destroy them. So I would suggest that if you're having issues with one and you had to desolder it, it gets on there crooked, get it off there, pitch it, and get a new one. Don't solder the old one, because if you apply a lot of heat, you can, but if you've tried to resolder it about twice, it's already shot, so it's time to just throw it away and get a new one. I'm not sure what the cost is, but can't be too much. They're that small. So we're going to apply the last one. We're going to heat this up. Hold. Looks like it bonded. And I kind of see if I can get in there, and I'm just going to apply some pressure, hopefully, and bend it into place. Oh, there we go. I just applied some pressure and pushed it down on the board while it was hot and melted it into the solder. That looks like it's bonded pretty good. So now I'm going to come back with my meter. The instructions say once you've installed that, don't know, are they internally connected? No. They're going to ask you to install a shunt across here. Let's make sure that one's not looking good. Oh, there it goes. They're going to ask you to use some of your old wires from your other resistors and simply install across the top to make sure that they're all working. And this is just more practice. And so what we would do is we would install a shunt across here. I'm just going to lay a piece of wire, and when I'm done with it, I'll cut it. And so perhaps I'll apply a little solder to each one of these pads. Now I'm going to practice installing a shunt. You're going to have to do that next so we can test this stuff. A little solder, put a little solder there. I don't have to worry about the ends. Let's just practice. Put a little solder there, and we'll put some there. And the point of this is to get you practicing before you go to the part that's going to matter. Now I'm not going to trim mine off until I get them soldered. So I want something to hold on to. So I grabbed an old piece of resistor. And I'm going to come through here and simply apply this small shunt. You'll do this at certain parts of the circuit so you can test it. And I'm going to just get some solder on there. Hold. We're going to these shunts. I think that bonded. There we go. You can apply more solder if you want. I'll put a little dab on there and was quick about it. Looks like it's bonded. This shunt probably going to come off. So I've applied this first shunt, which is basically a jumper. You're going to jumper out parts of this board so you can test it before you put it all together. So you're going to test each part. You're going to test the U and the S and the A. In order to do that, you're going to have to install these shunts. So they want you to have practice while you do that. Let's see if I'm still on the camera. Yep. I'm going to come over here and repeatedly flip this across the board until it falls onto the floor. We'll try another one. Trying to get a shunt on here. Watch hitting the other resistor. Don't do what I did. Hit your component you've already worked on. Hold, hold, hold. All right. I'm going to bend this over a little bit so I can install the second shunt. Bend it over just a little bit. Heat up that solder till it bonds. Make that bonded. Then I'll remove the excess when I'm done. Remember, here's where you want to make sure your safety glasses are on. You don't want to send these tiny pieces of wire flying out across the room. You also need to watch, if you'll feel right now, you've been working on the back of this board is pretty hot right there. Mine is a little warm, so watch about going too fast on this. Doesn't hurt to take your time and let that board cool off. And so now I've applied my shunt across all of those points, and I'll apply my meter across here and here. And if I did everything correctly on my practice solder, I should read 3 kilo ohm, because I have 1 kilo ohm, 2 kilo ohm, 3 kilo ohm. 1, 1, 1 is 3. They're tied in series by my shunts, and I should be reading 3 kilo ohm. Now your instructions are going to say to solder all of this out. We're going to test this where you can see it. And we have 3 kilo ohm. So you'll have shunts that you install throughout this project to test it. So if you've done the outlines, let's see where we're at on our steps. We've talked about step 12, step 13, SMT resistor practice. We've done that one. All right. You're on step 14, which is to install all of the resistors. You should have already soldered all of the LEDs on the US&A, and now you will install the resistors. Now, next you have to have shunts installed on this board. Okay, we have to have shunts. So we're going to come over here, and it says, just like I did previously on this where I installed the small wire across there, I'm going to install the same deal. So I want to test each one of these letters before I start putting the circuit on there. Make sure the reason I want you to do this is in case you have a bad chip or something else is going on. We want to make sure that the LEDs are working before we start adding chips to the board. And so we have soldered shunts 1, 2, and 4. You've already done 1. So let's look and find the rest of the shunts. They're labeled. Here's shunt 1. I'm going to locate my other shunts on the board. We're looking for shunt 2. Should be 1 on each letter. I have shunt 2. And now I'm looking for shunt 3. Or I'm sorry, shunt 4. You've already done 3. And here's shunt 4. So somewhere about the middle of the board, you're going to have to find the name and solder a piece of wire across here. Now, you're not going to do that until you've installed all of your LEDs and all of your surface mount components, because after we do all of that, in the next video, we're going to hook it up to USB, and all of our LEDs should light up, and at that point, we've completed all of the LED installation.